I tried to leave my friend's business, so he tried to erase me from it. Hi, smart legal people. I need some advice, and honestly, I could probably use a little reassurance too because I'm about to try to walk away from something I helped build, and I have a bad feeling it's not going to be as simple as I want it to be. So here's the setup. A few years ago, I became a partial owner in an online business that my friend started. And I mean a real friend. This wasn't some stranger I went into business with off a spreadsheet. This was somebody I genuinely cared about, somebody I trusted, which is the whole reason I said yes in the first place. We set it up as a multi-member LLC out in Oregon, the kind that gets taxed like a partnership. There are 3 of us. My friend, the one who started it, owns 60%. And then there's me and 1 other partner, and we each own 20%. Now, I have to confess something, and I already know what you're going to say, so please, go easy on me. We do not have an operating agreement. I know how that sounds. An operating agreement is the document that spells out exactly what happens in situations like the one I'm about to be in, how people exit, how they get bought out, who owes what to whom, and we never signed one. It's not for lack of trying on my part, I promise you. I pushed for it for a long time. I brought it up over and over. It just never got done. Everybody was busy, everybody figured we were friends, it'll be fine. So we ran a real business, with real money in it, on nothing but trust and good intentions. Remember that, because it's the crack that everything else pours through. For a bunch of personal reasons that aren't really important to the story, I got to a point where I needed to exit this business. I needed to move on with my life. So, about 2 weeks ago, I sent notice to both of my partners, letting them know that I intend to leave. And here's how they each responded, which tells you a lot. The other minority partner, the one who also owns 20%, he got it. He understood, he accepted it, and he and I are already working together on a transition plan, like adults. No drama. My friend, though, the majority partner, the one who owns 60%, the one I've known the longest, the one I trusted most. He hasn't responded to a single thing, not one email, not one word, total silence. And I should mention, all of our communication happens by email because we travel a lot and run the whole business remotely, so it's not like I can just walk into an office and catch him. I send emails into the void, and from the majority owner, nothing comes back. And I want to be clear about how much I trusted this guy going in, because it makes everything that comes later hurt more. When he first brought me in, it never once crossed my mind to lawyer up or paper everything to death. Why would it? He was my friend. You don't demand ironclad contracts from someone you trust with your house key. That trust was exactly why I said yes, and it was exactly the thing he'd eventually use against me. The whole business ran on the assumption that none of us would ever need protecting from each other. I believed that, right up until I didn't. So that's where I am. My question really is just, what do I need to be doing right now to protect myself? Do I need to be sending things by certified mail, or is email good enough? From what I've researched, it looks like in Oregon, an LLC member can actually remove themselves from a business 6 months after giving notice, but still keep their economic interest in it. So, in theory, I have a path out. I've worked really hard on this thing. It's modestly successful. It clears over $100,000 in profit a year. And it matters to me that I protect what I'm owed economically while still exiting the right way, the upstanding way. I fully expect this to take some time to sort out, so I figure I'll keep posting updates as I go. I had no idea, writing that, how long some time was going to turn out to be. Update 1. Okay, so over the next few months, 2 things happened. I went looking for a lawyer, and my silent partner finally broke his silence. Both went worse than I hoped. Let me start with the lawyer search, because it was bizarre. Everyone told me my situation was too complicated for a bunch of strangers on the internet and that I needed a real attorney. Fair. So I tried to get one. First, I called a lawyer friend of mine. We talked for a bit, and then he told me he couldn't advise me because it would be a conflict of interest. He has a relationship with the very partner I'm having the problem with. Okay. Fair enough, I thought. These things happen. So then I went to a business development program that offers legal help, got an appointment scheduled, and the morning of the meeting, I get a call telling me they have to cancel because their lawyer also identified a conflict of interest. And here's the strange part. The woman who called me couldn't even tell me what the conflict was because she herself didn't know. It was just a conflict. Somewhere. That's 2 lawyers now, turning me away, over conflicts with a partner in a modest online business. And I want you to hold on to that because it took me a while to understand what it meant. My friend, my partner, is a genuinely charming person. He has what I can only describe as a cult of personality. He's the kind of guy who can talk almost anyone into almost anything, who knows everybody, who people instinctively like and want to help. And I was starting to realize that his reach was long enough that I couldn't even hire a lawyer in town without running into someone who knew him. That's the kind of person I was up against. I did eventually find help. I hired a business attorney, a non-litigation guy, just to help me understand what my rights as an owner even were. He was helpful, but honestly, it didn't go anywhere. And then, after months of complete silence while I was still, by the way, running the business, my partner finally resurfaced. And I really wish he'd stayed silent because here's what resurfacing looked like. He decided, unilaterally, that I was no longer involved in the business. He removed me from our company bank account. He stopped making distributions to me, meaning he cut off my share of the money, and then he sent me a very generous contract. And I'm using generous the way you'd use it about someone doing you a huge favor by robbing you slowly. The contract offered me the opportunity to hand back all of my equity, my 20% ownership, in exchange for him agreeing not to sue me. For what, you ask? He wouldn't say. The threats were vague. Just this looming, unspecified something he might sue me for if I didn't give up my ownership stake for free. So let me summarize where I was. I tried to leave a business, politely, by the book, and in response, my friend fired me from the thing I partly own, took my name off the money, cut off my income from it, and threatened me with a mystery lawsuit unless I surrendered my entire stake for nothing. At that point, I stopped messing around. I went and hired the best litigation attorney in town. Also the most expensive, which those 2 things tend to go together. Because it was very clear now that this was not going to be resolved between friends. This was going to be a fight. Update 2. So here's where it goes from a disagreement to a genuine war. This part covers about 8 months, so settle in. The first thing my new lawyer went after was the financial records. Because here's the thing. As an owner of the company, I have a legal right to inspect the company's financial documents. That's not a favor, that's the law. I'm entitled to see the books. So for 8 straight months, my lawyer hounded the business's lawyer for those records. And for 8 straight months, we got nothing. We'd be led along, promised the documents were coming, and then get nothing. Or we'd just be flat out stonewalled. 8 months of that. So finally, in November, we did something my lawyer told me he genuinely never had to do in over 30 years of practice. We filed a lawsuit against the business specifically to force them to hand over the records I was entitled to. And here's the important detail, so remember it. In Oregon, this particular kind of inspection lawsuit comes with attorney fees, meaning if we win, they have to pay my legal costs. My lawyer said that's exactly why he'd never had to file one before in his whole career, because nobody in their right mind lets themselves get sued over records, because the liability is enormous. You just hand the records over. Any sane person hands them over. My partner is apparently not any sane person, because instead of handing them over, he dodged. The lawsuit has to be formally served on him, and as the registered agent of the company, that was his job to accept, and he evaded service for 2 solid months. He dodged us until January. He had a lawyer that entire time, and they simply never agreed to accept the papers. And then, even after we finally got him served, more stonewalling. We got no answer to the lawsuit at all. Nothing. So eventually, we filed a notice that we intended to take a default judgment. Basically, answer this or you automatically lose. And wouldn't you know it, the very next day, suddenly there's an answer, filed by a different lawyer from the same firm. And this answer denies all of my allegations, and, this is the part that got me, it claims that I don't actually have any interest in the business at all, that I'm nobody, and they countersued me for their attorney fees, which apparently they can't even legally get. But here's what really told me who I was dealing with. At the exact same time all of that hostile legal denial was happening, a third lawyer, again, same firm, reached out to me on the side, all friendly, saying, "Let's talk. What do you want?" So they were running two completely different stories at the same time. In the official court documents, I don't even exist, and they're suing me. And in the back channel, they're acting like they want to negotiate. It was dizzying. And then came the discovery that changed everything. In March, my lawyer's assistant was just doing some routine research, and she happened to stumble across something. The business had filed amended documents with the state, official paperwork, that completely omitted me. My name was gone. As a member, as an owner, just erased. On paper, with the government, he had made me disappear from the company I helped build. He was trying to erase me, not out-argue me, not buy me out. Erase me, rewrite the record so that I had never existed in that business at all. And I want to stop and tell you what that did to me, because it wasn't just a legal problem. It was something deeper than that. I had poured years of my life into this thing. Late nights, real work, real sweat. And here was a man I had once trusted completely, quietly going to the state and filing paperwork to make it as though I had never been there, as though all of it, all of me, could just be deleted with a form. There's a specific kind of cold you feel when you realize someone you cared about isn't just fighting you, they're trying to make you disappear, to rewrite history so cleanly that even the government's records would agree you were never part of the thing you helped build. It's one thing to be cheated. It's another thing entirely to be erased. That one kept me up at night. That was the moment my lawyer's whole demeanor changed. He decided to keep pushing the records lawsuit, but on top of it, he filed a brand new lawsuit, this time naming my partner personally, not the company, him, for breach of fiduciary duty. And this is also the moment he did something that genuinely moved me. He offered to represent me on contingency, meaning instead of me paying him by the hour, he'd take a percentage of whatever we won and cover the costs of the fight himself. For a business dispute like this, that's really unusual. And on top of it, he credited all the fees I'd already paid him toward future costs. It took this enormous financial weight off my chest right when everything was escalating. I found out later why he did it. It wasn't charity. It was because my partner had genuinely gotten under his skin and he wanted to keep turning the screws. I get the sense he's near the end of a long career, and at this point, he only takes cases that actually interest him. And mine had become personal for him, which, honestly, exactly the guy I wanted in my corner. Final update. So it's been about 2 years now since I sent that first polite email saying I'd like to leave. 2 years. Let me tell you how it finally ended. A few months after all the lawsuits were flying, we deposed my partner. A deposition is where they have to sit down under oath and answer questions from my lawyer. I wasn't there for it myself, but I read the transcript afterward, and it was honestly both sad and hilarious. My lawyer, the 30-year veteran, told me afterward that it was the third most frustrating deposition he had ever taken in his entire career, and I remember thinking, well, I guess you can't be number one at everything, but that deposition did something important. It made my lawyer even angrier, and it made it clear to the other side that this was really happening. So after it, my partner's attorney reached out to offer a settlement. And by the way, at this point my partner was on his third different lawyer through all of this, burning through attorneys. The first settlement offer was terrible, so we told them, no thanks, But, we said, we'll do mediation if you want. Sit down with a neutral third party and try to hash it out. And they agreed. And I have to tell you the part that is almost too ironic to believe. Mediation was my partner's idea in the first place. Way back at the very beginning of all of this, before any of the insanity, before the freeze-out, before the lawsuits, he was the one who suggested we mediate. I agreed to it. And then he changed his mind at the last second and vanished into months of silence, and the whole 2-year war happened instead. And now, at the end of it all, after everything, we were finally doing the exact thing he'd proposed at the start. We could have just done that. We could have skipped all of it. So we spent a full day in mediation, an entire day of back and forth. And at the end of it, when the negotiations finally broke down, we accepted what's called a mediated settlement. And once my lawyer's contingency fee was taken out, the amount I walked away with was not far off from what I'd believed I was owed this whole time. So I was happy to take it, and to finally put an end to a 2-year saga that had drained me in ways I didn't know a thing could drain you. And I do mean drained. I don't think I understood going into this what 2 years of low-grade war does to a person. It's not the dramatic moments that get you. It's the constant background hum of it. It's checking your email with your stomach clenched. It's the case living rent-free in the back of your head at dinner, at the gym, at 3 in the morning. It's explaining to the people in your life, again, why you're still dealing with this, why it's not over yet. For 2 years, some part of me was always braced for the next blow. You don't get that time back, and no settlement check pays you for it. That's the invisible bill nobody warns you about when you decide to stand up for yourself. Now let me tell you how I actually feel about it, because the numbers are only half the story. I second-guessed myself constantly through this whole thing. Constantly. And I'll admit something about myself here. I'm a little neurotic by nature, the kind of person who replays every decision at 2 in the morning wondering if I got it wrong. So you can imagine what 2 years of a lawsuit against a friend did to a brain like mine. There were so many nights I felt genuinely guilty for suing someone I had once cared about so much. I'd lie there and think, am I the bad guy here? Am I the one who blew up a friendship over money? He was my friend. I stood up at things for this guy. I knew his family. And here I was, dragging him through court, deposing him, filing suit after suit against him personally. But every single time I really sat with it and forced myself to be honest, I came back to the same truth. He brought this on himself, every bit of it. I didn't come in swinging. I sent a polite email saying I'd like to move on with my life, the most reasonable thing a person can do, and he answered that by freezing me out, cutting off my money, threatening me with a mystery lawsuit, and filing papers to erase my name from existence. I gave him a dozen off-ramps. He took none of them. I didn't start this fight. I just finally, after months of being the only adult in it, refused to lie down and let it happen to me. And I'm proud of that, honestly. Because the alternative was spending the rest of my life asking myself, why did I let him get away with that? And I'm not going to have to ask myself that. I stood up. I think that matters more than the money. Here's something I came to understand about him too. That cult of personality I mentioned, the charm, the way everybody likes him and does what he wants, it had clearly worked his whole life. I don't think anybody had ever actually stood up to him like this before. It caught him completely flat-footed. And the strangest part of the entire 2 years was that he never once made a logical, strategic move until he was truly backed into a corner facing an actual trial. The whole time I kept thinking, is this a trap? Do they have some brilliant plan I just can't see yet? And the longer it dragged on, the more I realized the truth. There was no plan. There was no genius strategy. The entire strategy was just to ignore me until they couldn't anymore. That was it. 2 years of my life against a man whose only move was to pretend I didn't exist and hope I'd go away. So my bank account is a lot healthier now than it was. And I want to be honest with you about this, because it's the truest thing I can tell you. The money rings hollow. It really does. Because in winning it, I lost a friend and I lost a partner. That relationship is gone and it's not coming back. But here's the thing I've made my peace with. I was going to lose that friendship no matter what. The second he chose to erase me instead of shake my hand, that friend was already gone. He stopped being that person. So given that I was going to lose him either way, I suppose it's better to have the money than to have neither. To have lost the friend and gotten nothing would have been the worst of both worlds. And I'm just deeply thankful for the lawyer I found. I could not have kept this fight up all the way to the end without him taking it on contingency. He carried me through it, and I can tell he genuinely loves what he does. I actually think he's a little disappointed we settled and he doesn't get to take this one all the way to trial. Me, though, I'm just glad it's over. I got what I was owed, I kept my name, and I can finally move on with my life, which, if you remember, is all I ever wanted in the first place.